Good evening, my friend. My cup of coffee right here. It's currently around 22:38 p.m. right now, so that means we're almost going into midnight. But before actually going into midnight, you can say, we're actually going to sleep. I still wanted to make this video because I haven't made these type of videos for a very long time now, and the reason for that is because every single time I try to record something now, I do it for the sole purpose of posting it on YouTube. So I've not really sit down for a long time now and actually analyze myself and my thought patterns and actually have a good conversation with myself. I think it's a long time since I've done that, and I feel like once again it's time to regain that vision again, to regain that conversation again, because at the end of the day, I like these type of videos, man. I like just sitting here in a very soothing, peaceful mode and just talking about life. At the end of the day, it's just fantastic. It's like journaling, but you're not writing nor typing. You're just basically talking in front of a camera. In today's video, I want to talk about something very important. And this is something actually that's been laying on my mind for a very long time now, since actually, you can say mid-May, like end of May, like we're almost in July right now. It's the 27th of June, 2025. So that means that in about 3 to 4 days from now, July will begin. So that means it's brand new month, brand new goals. I'm going to start this entire dopamine detox protocol for July. I'm going to make a separate video about that. I'm going to also post that on YouTube. And hopefully I'm going to make a video every single day in that period of time, and then we'll see how far we can get it. Like, I don't really have to think about, I've not really written a script, because like I used to do, and I still do actually to this day, I like to just freestyle my videos. I feel like it's more authentic than just reading a sentence from a script. Like, today I'm going to talk about like a good boy. I just want to talk about what's on my mind, man, because I have to get it out. I have to like get it out of my chest, get it out of my, you could say, aura. In today's video, I want to talk about pleasure. I want to talk about hedonism. What do I mean by that? A couple of days ago, I made a Substack post about hedonism, and it made me reflect in that moment in time where I was like, okay, maybe I need to switch things up a little bit, because I've become not too comfortable, because at the end of the day, every single day I chase pain and suffering, because I feel like at the end of the day, that's what's going to build you. And when we're talking about pain and suffering, that's an entire different video, but pain and suffering, you can look at it from two perspectives. And the first one is, inflicting pain and suffering onto yourself to become a better man, to become something greater than your current self, becoming a new identity, you could say, a new self-image. Or when we're talking about pain and pleasure, when we're talking about pain and suffering, you can also look at it from the other side of the spectrum and say, okay, I'm going to inflict pain and suffering, and I'm going to feel pity for myself, because at the end of the day, life is suffering. Whatever you do, you will suffer. I like to sit here and just analyze mental health and say how important that is. And, you need to prioritize mental health. That's good. It has its benefits. It has its position in time, you can say. But when we're talking about like pain and suffering, once again, you can look at it from the both sides of the spectrum. You have the right and you have the left. Basically, the law of polarity, which basically states that everything has no polar opposite. You can see from the good side of the spectrum, when you inflict a lot of pain and suffering onto yourself, you can use that, you can cultivate that energy to become a better man. But if you just inflict pain and suffering for yourself because you're feeling sorry for yourself, because that's also when you feel pain, you feel sorry for yourself, you self-pity, you blame other people, you blame the world, you blame the system, you blame everything, it's not going to bring you far. But you still suffer in the process. Like, even if you take the easy route, you always suffer. Like, you will always suffer. That's basically how life is. And it's not because I've read a lot of books of nihilism, Nietzsche, whatever, like philosophy. It's not about that. It's about like real talks, literally about what life is. I have a very strong opinion that life is just suffering and pain, but you choose your pain. And of course, not everything has to be painful and suffering. Sometimes moments can be great. You need to enjoy those moments, because at the end of the day, those moments are not going to last forever. So when we're talking about like pain and suffering, I feel like if you can cultivate that once again in a way where you actually benefit from it, use it every day. Chase pain and pleasure, because that's going to build you into a man that you need to become. This is not, once again, like I always tell you guys, not because I've watched some motivational videos on Instagram, like 5 a.m. quotes, all those cringy bullshit. This is real talk. Like, this is coming from experience in life. Isn't it crazy? Like, the more pleasure I chase, the more instant gratificational things I chase, the more I suffer. But the more I suffer and chase pain, the more I feel pleasure in the moment. Like, it's very weird, like you can say dichotomy to think about, because it's like this loop that you're finding yourself in. You are chasing pleasure and pain all of the time. When you're in pain, you want to get out of it. You want to feel pleasure. But when you feel pleasure for a very long time, you don't necessarily want to feel pain, but you want to get into that mode again where you kind of like grow, because you cannot grow in pleasure. It's instant. It just lasts for a couple of seconds. then it's gone. Maybe a couple of minutes, maybe an hour, maybe even a day, maybe even a week, whatever. But it will always fade away. Same with pain and suffering. You're not gonna suffer all the time. It will fade away. So why do I say this? Why do I want to make this video again? So once again, like I said, the topic of this video is going to be about hedonism and the chase of pleasure and what you can get out of it. I made a Substack post, like I said, about hedonism and about your chase of pleasure and how that is not good. And I made it like a very strong argument there. Civilizations always have been built up by people that suffered the most. If you have a society full of people that chase pleasure all the time, if they chase that kind of like the primary goal is to feel as much as possible the positive emotions as much as possible, and not like kind of like use the left side of the brain to actually analyze the situation, actually move from there, the society will collapse within years. It just will be gone. Because in order for a, kind of like you can say, a civilization to actually strive forward, in order for a civilization to actually move forward in time, you need people that do the hard shit even though they don't really feel like doing it. Nobody wants to fucking wake up at 5 a.m. and do some fucking construction work at a job that maybe pays good, but at the end of the day, you're waking up 5 o'clock, working like 12-hour shifts. Nobody wants to do that shit. Like, nobody, of course, there are exceptions to the law, right? But nobody wakes up and says, you know what? Today, I just want to fucking build skyscraper, whatever. Like, I want to build a building. I want to actually build an apartment so people can actually, live in there. It takes time. It takes like a lot of these processes that you need to go through in order to actually build that. Nobody wants to do that. Like, maybe there are people that are passionate about this, but it's not based on the feelings. It's based more about, the purpose, the mission, because you know that the actions that you take right now will actually cause a greater benefit in the future. It's not about feelings. And I feel like if you have a society, and I'm not perfect, I'm not the second coming of Christ. I make mistakes every day. I fail every day. So when I'm sitting here in front of a camera and talking about these things, know that I've failed so many times that I've got this, you can say, this wisdom, this knowledge to actually talk in front of a camera. I've done this shit for like so many times. I've chased dopamine so many times. Like, I was social media addicted, bro. Like, that shit is not a joke. Like, if you're social media addicted, you're kind of like constantly on Instagram, comparison, like that shit just fucks up your mental health like completely. Like, when I was like 15 years old, before all of this journey, I was so much like addicted to Instagram. Like, I just couldn't put it away. Like, I had to kind of like construct this willpower, this divine power actually in my mind to actually go against that. It was not that easy, to be honest. It was fucking difficult. Like, it was hard as hell. But that kind of like cultivated my willpower. But that's besides the point. The point is that if you have a society, once again, civilization, that wants to actually strive towards something greater good, like something building, like you want to chase a mission that is greater than yourself, you need people, you need a group of people, you can say. You need a society that actually uses their logic more than their feelings. Because feelings come and go. They're not really something that you can rely upon. But, here's the big but, right? But, let me take a sip of this coffee. But once again, if you think about any big invention, like everything that was made up, like everything that just was like a pure beauty of an art, it was not because of your left side. When you think about science a lot, it's not like Einstein did not really come to his conclusion about, relativity theory or whatever with just logic. It was just not using the left side of his brain only. It was not just only equations. It was not only physics. It was not only the mathematics, the beauty of mathematics behind the physics that he was doing. It was an intuition that led him. It was an emotion that led him. Like Einstein, I think, I might misquote this, I don't know, but I read it somewhere that on social media that a lot of the things that Einstein actually got, like his ideas, did not really come from work. His ideas actually came from when he was doing something else besides work, right? When he was doing something else besides scribbling all of these equations on a whiteboard, or maybe on a chalkboard, whatever, because they didn't have whiteboards back then. But you get my point. It did not only come from science itself. It came when he was actually resting his mind, and new neural connections, you could say, formed in his brain. That's when he got the ideas, that actually, when he got the intuition, this is how it actually works. Like, it connected with each other. And I feel like the reason why I say this is because you cannot always use the left side of your brain. Like, society cannot always function when it's logical. Of course, you need to have feelings, because with feelings, you create something. Like, every single piece of art, every single painting was painted because of a feeling that the painter had in the first place, right? You have a feeling, and this, you can say this feeling is very different than the chase of pleasure, because the chase of pleasure is not really a feeling, it's just a craving. It's like you lack something. It's like you're trying to fill a hole that cannot be filled. That's why I'm so much against this hedonism. But when we're talking about the beauty of art, like when you're chasing this art, you can say the feelings that you get are not really like, they don't come from the same source as like instant gratification. They come from a deeper source within you. They come from this, you can say, spiritual side of yourself that wants to manifest itself into physical reality. And that's, you get an idea in your mind, you get a thought, and you follow that thought pattern, and then you actually paint it into reality. It goes way deeper than just having a feeling, having an urge to do something, because that's what these dopaminergic things are. Once again, I cannot pronounce it very well. I need to better my English. At the end of the day, it's still a challenge for me. But let's actually not look at it from a broader perspective, because every single thing that you have to, if you want to analyze something, you have to look at it from a tiny perspective, from a micro perspective, and also from the bigger perspective, which we also call the macro perspective, right? So let's not actually focus on the bigger perspective. Let's not focus on society, civilization, nations, countries, whatever. Let's focus on the individual, right? Let's focus on the self, like the micro perspective, right? So when you're a guy or a woman, whatever, when you're a human being, you have a certain cravings, right? You want to do this, you want to do that, you have desires to do certain stuff, to achieve certain things. But I feel like some of those desires, not all, are based on these hedonistic, pleasurable activities that you want to chase. But if you analyze this deeper, and if you ask yourself the question of why to every kind of like desire that you have, you will find out that a lot of these desires that you have are delusional. Like, they're not really real. They're more based on things that were taught to you in the past, people that kind of like ingrained their belief systems onto you. So now you want to chase those things as well, because now you want to fill that hole. Once again, that can never be filled, but you want to fill that hole because that person, or your dad, your family, your friends, whatever that person may be, said to you, yeah, you need to chase that. You need to walk down that path. So you walk down that path, and at the end of the path, you will look back and say, hold on a minute, I achieved this certain goal. Maybe you achieved it, but I still feel empty. Why is that? Well, it's because you actually went down the wrong path. You shouldn't have walked that path. Of course, you cannot say it's too late. It's never too late. You can always change things back, but you cannot reverse time. Time in itself is a topic for a different video. But what I'm trying to say here is, like, my point is that if you chase hedonistic pleasures, if you chase pleasurable activity, dopamine after dopamine, Instagram, social media, YouTube, content after content, consuming, you will live a very miserable life. But why do I say that? Like, we can analyze this further. Why is it that if you chase so much dopamine, if you chase so much content, so much pleasure, so much instant gratification, why do you then feel empty? The reason for that is because the pleasure that you get from those activities are short-lived. They come and they go. They're not really something real. And talking from my own perspective, like right now, I have a very strong belief, like I talked about in my previous videos, that nothing actually matters in life. I've preached this in my couple of videos, like in the past, that nothing matters in life, and that's the beauty that you've been given by life, that life is meaningless, right? You can say there's a very nihilistic view to look at life, but here's the beauty of it. Because life is meaningless, you are the one that gives life meaning. I mean, it's a very beautiful thing to say, right? It's a good quote, like, life is meaningless and you are the one that basically gives life meaning. That's true for the most part, right? But if you live by this philosophy, like I've done for, you can say, a month and a half right now. Now you can say like almost 2 months. What happens is that, okay, if everything is meaningless, if the universe, the world, the earth, whatever, if everything is meaningless and it has no built-in meaning, if everything is just prones, objects, then why the hell would I choose to suffer and go through the pain to achieve something great, when in reality, that achievement that you can get, the result that you can get, is as equal as chasing the pleasure now? Why would I go through the pain? Why would I go through the suffering and through the trials and tribulations of getting something in life, and actually not proving yourself to the world, but proving yourself to yourself that you can basically do this? Why would I do that when in reality, you can say the result of the thing that you're trying to get is as equal, it has as equal power to the thing that you're trying to get now, which is the pleasurable thing, which is eating the fucking, you can say, unhealthy food, like skipping the gym, not meditating, not going outside, staying inside, playing video games, like all of these very high in dopamine things. Like, why would I not chase that if the results of that are as equal as the results of the things that I'm trying to chase, but they contain more suffering and pain? That's how I lived. I said to myself, you know what? Life is meaningless, whatever, right? Just because life is meaningless, I have a chance to basically choose because of my free will. So I can choose to walk on this path and I can choose to walk on that path. I've always preached to myself a couple of years ago that you need to take the path of the most that has the most resistance to it. Why? Because you will become a better man out of it at the end of the path. But what I did is I thought, you know what? Both paths are as equal. Why? Because both paths are meaningless unless I give it meaning. So I started to walk on this path of least resistance. And what happened was that when I walked on this path of least resistance, I started to act on impulsive behavior. I started to follow this pattern of thought and behavior that led me to pretty much a lot of stupid decisions. Now you might ask the question, okay, but what are stupid decisions? What do you define as stupid decisions? Like, what decisions are stupid? The decisions that were stupid were sexual desires that you should not act upon, like calling a girl because you have this sexual impulse to do that. But the gift that you've been given by the gods, universe, God itself, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. Words do not matter. At the end of the day, they just point to something beyond themselves, like Alan Watts said. But if you analyze this thought pattern further, the beauty that you've been given by God is that you have free will, and that free will you can also choose to basically control yourself and control your emotions, control your thoughts. Because if society was not able to control itself, to control oneself, to control one's own desires, one's own emotions, one's own perspectives, one's own impulsive behavior, then society would have already been collapsed. Like it would just, we would have no society. We would still be living in caveman versions of ourselves. We've been given this intellect to think and to analyze, especially with our left side of our brain, to analyze things and actually make calculations, probability theory, to actually calculate what's about to come. So if you know, if you're going to act on this impulsive behavior, that it's going to be consequences, because at the end of the day, every single action that you take on has consequences. If you know that, because you have a left side of your brain that actually analyzes these things and actually makes a probability of what's going to happen, what might happen, you can say, because it's chance, it's based on chance, and you're not going to act upon that because it's a stupid behavior. But because your feelings are stronger than your mind most of the time, because we are emotional creatures, we're emotional social creatures, you tend to act on impulsive behavior. But what I'm trying to teach you is to go against that. I'm not saying never act on emotions, because some emotions, like I said, with the painter, for the example, with the painter, like the painter or the artist, whatever, feels something before they create the art. You cannot really create art with just logic. You can, but it's not going to be as beautiful as the artist that actually paint something with their emotions. So what I try to preach to myself, not only to the people online, but also to myself, is to not act on impulsive behavior, because that will bring you farther from yourself. Once again, you have to be very careful, because you have to distinguish between what feels good right now and what's going to feel good in the future. Once again, instant versus delayed gratification. And I have a very strong opinion that if you focus on delayed gratification, you will get the most effect out of life. You will get the most benefit out of life. Let me just put it that way. Because what will happen is that you chase the pleasure, you act on these impulsive behavior, you act on the sexual behavior, whatever, and you get it. Congratulations, you get laid, you get the girl, you get the girlfriend. What you don't realize is that that emptiness will still remain. That hole that you have within yourself will always remain in there. It's just gonna happen. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. You're always going to feel that. And then what happens, you start to blame the girl, or you start to blame the people, you start to blame the circumstances. Well, it's not the circumstance, my friend. It's because of a choice that you made in the past. And that choice had a consequence, and now you're paying the consequence of that choice. But whereas if you look at it from the other side of the spectrum, and you actually chased the control side of yourself, if you actually controlled that impulsive behavior, you won't have to deal with the consequence of that action, because you never took the action in the first place. You said, you know what, I feel this. You became conscious of yourself. I feel this, I'm not going to act upon it. Why? Because I know there is a very high chance of probability that this might happen, and if this happens, I'm not going to do it. This may contradict itself, like I talked about earlier in my previous videos, like you need to act, like you need to first act and then reflect. But right now I'm thinking, like, maybe you should reflect actually before you act. This, once again, you can also take it to the extreme where you actually basically reflect and then always act, and that's not good, because once again it takes the joy out of life. So you need to once again find a balance between when do I act and when do I first reflect and then act. Talking from my own perspective, I feel like if I just chased as much pain suffering as possible in a given domain, you can say, I get the most pleasure even. And that pleasure is a different type of pleasure than just chasing these dopaministic urges, because at the end of the day, those things are temporary. They're not gonna last. But if you chase the suffering, the pain, the pleasure is gonna last for a very long time. And I feel like if you can optimize for that, if I can optimize for that, it's gonna be a good ride. Because at the end of the day, I've to also admit, like I said also in the beginning of this video, that you're not perfect. You will make mistakes every single day. You will fail, regardless of what you do, what path you will choose. You will fail. But that's also the beauty of life, because at the end of the day, if you look at it from a positive perspective, you can say, okay, I failed. What lessons did I learn? What lessons did I get from this failure? Even though there is no such thing as failure, you only define it that way. Only lessons, you can say. That's exciting, because if everything would have been good, you don't know what bad is. Like I talked about in my previous videos, you need both things to exist. The advice you can say that I would give to the people that are watching, maybe I get 10 views, 100 views, whatever, who cares? Chase the most difficult path, my friend. Chase that pain, chase that suffering. Face it, face the fear. Because the funny thing is, when we're talking about spirituality, you are one with everything, right? Everything is one with you. Everything is one. Everything literally is one. If everything is one, what that means is, if you're afraid of something, what you will realize, you will delay it a little bit for like a couple of years, but then you will look back at it once you face the fear. And once you face the fear, you will look at the fear, and then you will realize, holy shit, that fear was basically me playing games with myself. There was no fear. It was just myself. Like when you look at the fear, you're looking at yourself. There is no fear, my friend. It's just all illusionary thoughts that accompany your mind, and that is what gives these emotions, you can say, a chance to feel inside you. That's why you react the way you do. Your mind has control of your body, right? Your body does not have control of your mind. You can say it, of course, you can look at it from both sides of the spectrum once again, but your mind controls your body, which basically means if you have a thought in your mind, it will produce an emotional feeling in your body. That emotional feeling can actually cause an action, and that action can cause a result. It's like a chain reaction, right? If you can control your mind, you can basically control the feeling inside of your body, because that is what the mind produces. It produces a feeling in your body. The point is that if you chase the most difficult path, once again, my friend, you will find greatness. You will find yourself. You will find the fear, and the fear will fade away, because there is no such thing as fear, just mind-made illusions. That's just what I want to talk about in today's video. Coffee is pretty cold. I think I'm going to post this because it was a good call. It was a good talk with myself again. We will see, man. I might edit it. I don't know. I said in the beginning, I'm not gonna edit it, but I'm not quite sure about that. I will see. I'll watch this video back, watch my mistakes, learn from them, and then the next video is going to be better, of course. Always improving, my friend.